Hey, welcome to the Elle Russ Show. My name is Elle Russ, and I am a #1 best-selling author and master coach. My intention is to inspire, educate, and motivate you with weekly content featuring amazing guests and solo episodes. Visit my website, elleruss.com, to learn more about me, my courses, free masterclasses, partner discounts, and much more. Enjoy the show. Hey everyone, today we have LaVista Jones. She's a certified coach and author and host of the Boss Talk podcast. She's a professional speaker with a message that challenges others to shift the way they engage with their work and care for themselves in the process. Her latest book, The Boss Shift, is a literary blueprint for implementing her signature framework that fuses systemization and self-care into practical self-preserving strategies for work-life balance. LaVista, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am doing great. Thank you for having me.
Well, in the intro, I mentioned Boss Talk and your book, The Boss Shift. And what I love is that, and I don't think a lot of people upon hearing it right away would guess, BOSS stands for Battling Overwhelm with Systems and Self-Care. And
Yes.
that's really interesting. And I love that. And also, in order to do that successfully, you kind of have to be a boss. So it's dual. But tell us, what's the life journey that led you to become a coach, to do the work that you do, and to create a system by which you teach and execute yourself in life? And why should we think about adopting it ourselves?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it stems from my former life in corporate. I often joke and call myself a corporate dropout turned entrepreneur because I mean, that's truly what
Same.
I am. And my relationship with work was, I would call it complicated in the sense that my job, it wasn't anything that like I dreaded, right? And was just like, oh, I can't go into the office. I loved my corporate position. And in fact, it was something that was created for me and my skill set and, the talents and value that I brought to the table. So I loved every aspect of it. I just had really, really, really bad boundaries around my time and how I took care of myself in that season of my life. And when I decided to leave, it was after having a burnout episode and having to be out on like short-term disability and all of that to try and recover from years and years and years of pushing myself at an unsustainable pace that just simply wasn't healthy. And in 2014, when I did resign from that position and decided to work with my own clients, I started seeing a lot of the same like habits and behaviors that I had in corporate, the not sleeping, working throughout the night, sending emails at 3 o'clock in the morning, responding to emails at 3 o'clock in the morning, not taking vacations, not taking time to eat, never pushing away from your desk, apologizing for like being late to a Zoom because you had to go potty, like those kind of things. And it was just like, well, wait a second. Nobody goes into entrepreneurship, right? Wanting to eventually resent this business that they have put so much time and energy and resources into. And so I knew that I needed to take the lessons learned from my own journey and help other women make some essential shifts so that they could have businesses that nurture them instead of ones that deplete them and lead them on the road to burnout themselves.
That's always a great bottom. Symptoms are our greatest teachers. Burnout will hit you and get you every time. And you know what? That takes a minute to recover from. Once you burnt out and you were like, all right, entrepreneurship, you founded and you're the CEO of a company, and which is the same name of your website. We'll discuss that in a minute. Tell us all about that. What was the inspiration and where are you at with it now? What has it become?
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to come alongside and support visionary women with the work that they did. And the name of the company is 31 Marketplace, and it actually is it's a nod to the Proverbs 31 woman that's mentioned in the Bible. Um, I have found that a lot of women that I encounter look at that example of the Proverbs 31 woman and all of the things that she accomplished. And it's just like, oh, like that's goals, right? But one of the things I think that they miss quite often is there is uh, a verse that talks about, her preparing food for her maidservants, which to me signals she had help doing all of the things that she was doing. And so I knew that I wanted to build a company that was going to help these amazing visionary women to fulfill their vision, but also show them how to also take care of themselves in the process.
And how do you do that? I mean, you have a podcast, which is great. You're getting good information out that way. You also have some interesting services. Tell us about the ways in which you can support people and the impact that they would like to have in the world.
Yeah, so it really is about marrying the systems and self-care, right? Which is part of that acronym of BOSS. Um, and the way that we go about doing it is showing them how to create systems that support them in business. And bring some ease into the business in the sense of leveraging automation as a teammate instead of, feeling that you have to do all of the things, wear all of the hats in the business to be able to take your superwoman cape off and let your tools and your systems actually do some of the heavy lifting for you, especially around repetitive things. Showing them how to optimize technology that they already are using to the best of, the to the full capability of like what that particular platform can do, and actually also showing them how to actually bake in self-care into their systems. An example that I share quite often is leveraging your love languages into your business systems. So for example, I'm a words of affirmation. That's one of my primary love languages. And so for me, it's important to have a really strategic, automated testimonial system for clients that I work with, right? Because when that happens and it happens automatically, essentially my business sends me little love notes every time I have a client engagement, and that feeds me and lights me up and brings me joy. And that's a way that we show clients that their business can actually nurture and take care of them by really actually baking their self-care practices into the way that they're doing their work.
What are some common themes that you hear with people who have crossed over, like who've come from the corporate world? Now they're trying to do it all with entrepreneurship and they're running up against walls. And like you said, I mean, a lot of people do end up kind of resenting the thing that they were once passionate about because of this.
Mhm. Yeah, one of the things that I hear a lot is that they feel scattered and they feel overwhelmed because somehow they have um, taken on that they have to be the one to solve all of the problems and do all of the things in the business. When I was in corporate, I had a whole team that was supporting me. I had peers, I had bosses, I had direct reports. And so just because I was working on an initiative or a deliverable, it wasn't solely on me to get something done. And I think that one of um, the things that entrepreneurs do is they see something in the business that they want to achieve and they feel like they have to do it all on their own, or that they have to be the one that has all of the answers, or they're the ones solo that have to take this across the finish line. But vision isn't a solo gig, right? So they forget that they need to delegate or lean on somebody else to get it done, and not doing so leads to that, feeling exhausted, feeling scattered, feeling overwhelmed, feeling burnt out as an entrepreneur. And, like we talked about earlier, all of those things feeding into feeling resentful doing the work that you're doing.
Let's talk about your book a little bit, The Boss Shift, and also for everyone listening. I love what you're doing here, Lavista. You are sort of like, hey, you can kind of check out the first chapter and see if you even this is your jam. So we'll talk about that later. But let's get into the book a bit and tell us who is it for, and what are we going to gather from it? Why do we need to go get this book?
This book is written for the woman that is tired of sacrificing herself for her work. And what I mean by that is she's tired of, feeling that she has to show her value by what she's producing, or if she's producing at all. And she wants, to be able to have white space on her calendar, to take a break, to engage with her family, to do the things that she really likes doing and enjoying the life that she's trying to build as this entrepreneur, as this businesswoman. And she wants some practical things that she can do to make little tiny shifts that are actually going to stick so that she can start living life on her own terms and still love the work that she's doing.
I sometimes just get, if I think about, oh God, what if I had never left the corporate world?
Mm.
Again, in that moment, it was so many years ago, but occasionally the thought will come up. And it's literally like, just like, I'm like, oh
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I can't imagine that. But I once loved it. You know what I mean? I really did.
Yeah.
And so I see both sides of it. I see how people can thrive and love it. And I also had a similar case. In fact, was physically disabled from it. It's almost like the universe was like, you are definitely not meant for the corporate world because your body, we're ruining your body so you can't be in it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that level of burnout and having it create a major life shift. Let's talk about some of the joys of being an entrepreneur, the differences, some of the contrasts, some of these things you notice throughout the day. Like, for example, at least for me, not working 9 to 5, or, just by my own schedule, it never gets old that I can just go to the grocery store or Costco at like Tuesday at 10 o'clock
Yes.
and no one's there. And it's like, it doesn't get old for me. Like, those are the gifts that keep on giving. And I've been able to do that for 20 something years. These are these little joys. So, I mean, that's one of them. That's a very small, subtle, right? One thing other than being able to create an amazing thing to put out there. Of course, that's the other side of it. But let's just talk about some of these things that come up for you now that you're out of the corporate world and you've been an entrepreneur for a while.
Yeah. So the freedom with my schedule, like you were talking about, is definitely one of those benefits for me. So I find myself in, they call it like this sandwiched like season of my life where I have an 8-year-old son. And I also have an aging 78-year-old father that's across the country in Ohio. And so it can be difficult at times, like having the two very important men in my life that don't necessarily want to listen to me about things that I think that they should be doing or not doing. And I know that if I was still in my corporate position, right, like for example, if my son gets sick, working for myself, I'm able to adjust my schedule, reach out to my assistant to maybe get something rescheduled to clear out my day, without having to ask for permission to be able to shift my focus on what my priority is, which in that moment is my son. Or, like with my dad, if I need to, at a moment's notice, get on a plane and go to Ohio, not that corporate would have prevented me from doing that, but there's that level of permission, right? That you have to get like, hey, I got to get this cleared. I got to go, figure out what my time off might be, who's going to cover this project, those kind of things. As the boss, if I need to get on a plane and go to Ohio and get to my dad, I get on a plane and go to Ohio and get to my dad. And, I've got the team that can make the adjustments and fill in for things that need to be done. So I think that freedom with my time is huge and is something that, similar to you, says like I haven't lost the awe of that and the appreciation for it, especially when I'm in those life moments where I needed to prioritize my family. And it's just like, I have the freedom to be able to do this and be here in this moment and be present with the people who needed me instead of feeling like I'm letting somebody down because I wasn't able to go to this board meeting or whatever the case may be.
Well, and then there's like, I'm sure, I don't know, maybe you've experienced this too, but in my journey along the way as an entrepreneur, it's been a long journey, but there are moments where you're just like, oh, it's all me. Like, I wish I could just go to work and have someone tell me what. There are moments, like as much as it's so fun on the other side, sometimes there are moments where like, right, this is all me. Like, and that's what we're talking about. It can be this the weight of the world does come upon your shoulders at a certain point when you
Hmm.
have to ask for help, right? It's always going to happen if you're growing. And so before that, there can be these moments, and like it's tough. It requires a lot of perseverance and faith and sticking to that original joy. But let's talk a little bit about those moments. I'm sure you've had them too. And when we have them and people are going through them or listening, what are some things we can think about?
About being able to stay connected to your joy during those moments.
Yeah, or to sort of just, self pep talk us, through the moments when, yeah, it is, it's all us.
Yeah.
It feels
I
lonely, right? It does.
yeah, absolutely. I feel like in those moments, I need to reconnect with my why, like why I wanted to do this in the first place, right? I think that if your why is strong enough, um, even on those bad days when you're just like, you know what, for all this frustration, I could go be in somebody's office and, working through like my to-do list, coming home at 5 o'clock and calling it a day. And so, like I said, relying on that why for me, but then the other thing for me is also having I would say like a self-care infused lifestyle helps as well because even though running a business is stressful as heck, right? I don't want to ever like make it seem like it's like all like sunshine and roses every day because it absolutely is not. But in those moments, I think that I'm not as stressed out as like a business owner as I would be, or I know that I was when I was in corporate because I'm taking care of myself better now. I can unstress a lot easier than I could in the past because I've got, more things like in my toolkit that I can choose from in order to lift my spirits, to make myself feel better. Over time, I realized that I need community, right, with other like business owners, and so on those days where I'm feeling frustrated, one of those people are going to get a phone call and say, hey, X, Y, and Z is happening. Like, I feel like I want to quit and go back to corporate. Or like when I was writing, like, I'm not going to write this book anymore. I'm just going to publish everything as long blog articles on my website and call it a day, right? That understand where you are as a founder and a CEO and can let you vent, let you have your pity party, and then give you the encouragement that you need to like get back in there and reconnect with your why and move forward.
As a coach, what is one or two of your favorite stories, your 180s out there that, and I'm sure you have many, but the
Mhm.
people that really were able to just soar and didn't think that maybe they could?
Yeah, one is a client that I worked with on incorporating more self-care into just into her life as a business owner. And she fell victim to adhering to self-care based on what the quote unquote they told her to do, what they said self-care was for her. And what that entailed was her scheduling, these consistent massages and pedicures. And when we would talk and just kind of, go over how things are going with the business, how she's feeling, personally, all this stuff. And she would be like, every time I get a massage, I feel more stressed out. Like, I'm not as relaxed as I feel like I should be. And, I talked earlier about those love languages, and I was like, well, let's look at those and see how they stack against these things that you're doing. And we found out her self-care, um, like when it came to physical touch, like it was like a 2, which is about as low as you can get. And it was just like, well, why are you going and getting massages? And her responses was, well, that's what they told me to do. That's what they say self-care is. And so we had to adjust her definition, if you will, and how her business was allowing her to show up for herself. She wanted to paint, like taking a break to actually paint during the day instead of sneaking away and going in a massage was really like a like groundbreaking like aha moment for her that that was something that she could do to better take care of herself um than than doing like what the they told her to do. On the business side, I think of a client of mine that was wanting to host and launch a podcast. And she had felt very overwhelmed with the thought of the process, not really even knowing where to start. And every time she thought about it, she just saw all of the work that was going to be on her shoulders. And so it was one of those things that she kept just putting off and putting off and putting off. Finally, we talked about the systemization of it, the ease that we could build into it, how, her actually producing the show, we could do it in a way that made her feel good and brought her joy, had some self-care, automation, all those things kind of baked in. And we were able to launch without increasing her workload at all. And now she is receiving leads from the podcast and is getting paid speaking engagements as well because she has increased her visibility using that self-care infused system that we created for her to do something that she had a vision to do, but had been sitting on it for so long because of the overwhelm that she thought it was going to bring to her.
I'm glad you brought up that example about what they say. No,
Hmm.
she wasn't a physical touch person. Something else
Hmm.
was more of her passion. It might be golf for someone else. I know people that would just hate a massage and it wouldn't relax them at all,
Yes.
right? Could be cooking for someone. Like for me, for sure, massages. But
Yeah.
not everyone also needs a morning routine. It's like I know of very productive people that wake up late and stay up late. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? And that's just their
Hmm.
jam. And that I can't fathom it. It's just not who I am. But also to heavily prescribe something like she prescribed this thing for herself that she probably read in every single health magazine and cover in the grocery store. And it wasn't the right thing for her. And in fact, the self-care was self-harming a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. So, I mean, just if you're listening out there, not everything's going to be perfect for you. Like this goes for diets too. I'm obviously a paleo ancestral health expert, but a lot of people over the years would ask me, well, do I have to eat meat? Like, no, you don't have to do anything you don't want. And so to follow, again, it's like when you follow the herd, you step in shit. I don't know where that quote came from, but that kind of reminds me of that. And she's a perfect example. So I'm glad you brought that up because that's a lesson for all of us that if it's not feeling right after a while, then like maybe it's not for you. For example, certain types of meditation are not for me, but there's others that I love, right? But they
Hmm.
wouldn't work for someone else. So yeah, people are like, well, I'm trying to get into meditation. It's like, well, maybe you're just doing the wrong things, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, self-care is so personal. Um, you have to define it for yourself and live it out for yourself. And I think that marrying the two, like how you take care of yourself and how you set up your business to also take care of you, like those two things are so important, I think, for the longevity of your business operation, but also for you as the visionary, right? Like your business is not going to thrive if you're like this big old stressed out mess 24/7. Like it doesn't work that way.
So you did mention that you're originally from Ohio.
I am.
Is your father still there?
He is. He is in
Okay.
Ohio.
Yeah, so I'm a fellow Midwesterner originally. I'm from Chicago, and I see that you moved to Arizona. I moved to California years ago. Uh, huge life difference, I'm sure. How long have you been living the new life of sunshine? Because I actually did a commercial once for travel for Arizona tourism, and like one of the lines was something like the tagline, something like sunshine, something like 300 something days a year, but it was like almost 365 days a year of sunshine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so tell us a little bit about that move and that change in life, because I know what that's like too. And I don't know, or maybe you're like, oh, I hate it. I want snow. I want to go back.
Well, I have been here this year will be how- 14 years. I will have been here for 14 years.
Okay,
Um,
you're in.
yeah, and when I initially came out here, I came out here with my corporate position at the time, in my former corporate life. And when I first moved out here, being 2,000 miles away from my family, the only home I had ever known in Ohio, I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. I hated it. And I made excuses to go home to Ohio all the time. Like, hey, I've got to do this training. I need to do it in person in Ohio, or
Mm.
I need to meet with my team and I need to do it in person in Ohio. And, one day my boss is like, so you do realize you live in Arizona now. And I'm like, technicality, right? But it's
You're
definitely
like, I'm
grown.
getting there. I'm getting
Yeah,
there.
I'm getting there. It's definitely grown on me. I was of the mindset that once I started building my family that, 1,000% sure that I'm going to move back to Ohio to be close to my family. However, when I got pregnant, my husband and I, we had that discussion, and by that time we had created some roots and some really solid friendships and support out here. And it was just like for the first time, the desert felt like my home. And we really settled in. Our roots got deeper. We bought our first home here. We had our first kid here. And now like I'm a desert girl, right? And so when I'm driving like my son to school and I look up and I see a cloud, it's just like, well, what is that? Because it almost seems like foreign to see anything but sunshine out here. And so it has been an interesting transition for sure. I don't miss the gloomy weather back home in Ohio, but the thing that I miss the most is fall because one thing in the
Yeah.
desert, we don't have seasons per se.
Yeah.
Our temperature does change a bit, but we don't have, the beautiful colors of the fall or like spring flowers that bloom or seeing like the icicles like on the distant trees, right? As like this beautiful backdrop to your life. So I miss the fall and all the colors and the crisp air of being home. So that's probably when I'm the most homesick is the fall.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. So even though everything will be in the show notes to connect with you, let's talk about 31 because it's spelled out. So I just want people to know not to use 31.
Yes.
Talk about your website and also again where we can get your book and uh, what people will find when they're looking
Yeah.
there.
So, if you go to 31 Marketplace, you will see everything about my agency. And my agency, it's a podcasting agency that really focuses on supporting um, underrepresented voices that I feel are like thoughtfully disruptive, right? So, if you are an author or a speaker or a coach and you've got a point of view that feels unique and kind of outside of the box, we're probably an agency that would be a good fit for you as far as supporting you if podcasting is part of like your overall plan as a business owner. What you'll also find on that website is a link to more about me as not only the business owner, but like as a speaker and a coach. It's kind of unique that I am the CEO of a podcasting agency, but I myself personally, my work is really rooted on self-care and systems. And so you'll be able to access that as well, links to the book, and you'll have an opportunity to download the first chapter of the book if that's something that you're inclined to do.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us today. And for everyone else, we'll see you next week.
Oh, it was a joy. Thank you.
Hey, listeners. Over the years, a ton of companies have approached me to collaborate, but I will only promote companies whose products I believe in and that I actually use and consume on a regular basis. So let me tell you about some of my favorite companies that I can offer you discounts for. Rep Provisions, an amazing company doing incredible things for our planet, topsoil, and animals with regenerative agriculture, and it's my #1 source for quality pasture-raised meat and chicken. Visit repprovisions.com and use code L15 for 15% off. I'm also obsessed with a company called Carnivore Crisps. They make a lean, all-natural, and delicious alternative to conventional snacking, made with just real meat and real salt. Totally addictive, and my favorite ones are the beef brisket and the ribeye. Visit carnivorecrisps.com and use code PALEO10 for 10% off. I also love and regularly use Paleo Valley products. They make amazing supplements and delicious paleo products. I use the superfood greens powder, grass-fed beef sticks, the organ complex, and their bone broth bars. I love the lemon and apple. I also use their essential C complex and more. Visit paleovalley.com/promos/Elle Russ for 15% off. I also love Primal Kitchen. They make delicious paleo-approved, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, and no refined sugar products. And I use them daily, from their collagen powders and sauces and marinades to their avocado and olive oil. So good, so healthy. Visit primalkitchen.com and use code L10 for 10% off. I also love paleo powder and use it almost on everything I cook. They make incredible seasoning blends, and they also have these incredible grain-free coatings that feel just like crispy breadings that you would have had prior to knowing that there's another way. So visit paleopowder.com and use code L15 for 15% off.